Hi again, everybody. This is the Bricks and Bleachers podcast, all things Chicago Cubs in under 10 minutes. The Cubs have not won in a long time, a skid like we have not seen in quite a while. Nico Hoerner is back, an update on other Cubs injuries too, plus what is next for this Cubs team. I think I have found a reason to not write off this season just yet. Let's catch you up with where the Cubs are right now. Cubs are a 500 team on July 5th, a record of 42-42. Losers of 9 in a row. The Cubs threw the no-hitter on June 24 in Los Angeles, and the team hasn't won since. They lost the following 3 games of that set to the Dodgers, competitive in 2 of those games. They dropped 3 in Milwaukee, including 2 blowouts, and then 3 low-scoring affairs in Cincinnati over the weekend. Main culprit is a lack of offense. Cubs bats were ice cold throughout the month of June. Not much has changed in July, although you do see Kris Bryant heating up again. He's faring far better since the change of the calendar in June. His strikeouts outnumbered hits almost by a 3-1 pace. 26 strikeouts, only 9 hits for the entire month. In July, Kris Bryant has already recorded 6 hits in the first 3 games of the month. Cubs offense really struggling here recently. It looked like they were breaking out of their funk last week in Milwaukee. This was the Wednesday afternoon game, the final game of the 3-game set with Milwaukee. Cubs put up 7 runs in the top of the first inning against Aaron Ashby. It was his first career start, and what a welcome to Major League Baseball. Cubs knocked him out of the game before he could record 3 outs. So the Cubs are up 7. You feel pretty good about the odds, yet it spiraled quickly. Jake Arrieta was pulled from the game in the second inning. Cubs up 7-6 after 2 innings. Milwaukee blew it open with 8 runs in the 4th. A 15-7 loss, and that was just 2 days after a 14-4 rout by Milwaukee. Since June 13, this was a Sunday night game with St. Louis. Cubs have scored 3 or more runs only 5 times. That is a stretch of 20 games. Cubs are 2-3 in those games where they score 3 or more runs. Cubs gave up just 8 runs over the weekend in Cincinnati, but still were swept. They lost 2-1 on Friday night, then 3-2 on both Saturday and Sunday. Reds have overtaken the Cubs for second place in the National League Central. Cubs have fallen 8.5 games behind the division-leading Milwaukee Brewers. Cubs are 42-42. If you look back in recent Cubs history, you will see the last time the Cubs had a losing streak longer than the current 9-game losing streak. The 2012 Cubs, with Anthony Rizzo in his first year, that team dropped 12 straight at one point. And then if you look at the 2017 Cubs, you'll find another Cubs team that was 42-42 on the 5th of July. That team went into the All-Star break 43-45. Many were eager to throw in the towel, even though this was a Cubs team just a few months removed from winning its first title in over a century. So the 2017 Cubs ended the season with a record of 92-70, winning the National League Central by 6 games. They beat the Nats in the National League Divisional Series. They fell to the Dodgers in the National League Championship Series. And there are a lot of current Cubs on that 2017 team. Talking about Contreras, Rizzo, Baez, Bryant, Hayward. Ian Happ was on that team. Kyle Hendricks, Jake Arrieta. That team got things turned around. Time will tell with this one. All I'm saying is don't write off the 2021 Cubs just yet. All-Star game is next Tuesday in Colorado. Kris Bryant will be the National League starter at third base. Craig Kimbrell will be in the bullpen for the National League squad. Certainly both names being talked about as trade chips for the Cubs as the trade deadline approaches at the end of this month. You don't want to spend too much time looking backwards, but Clayton Kershaw said something pretty interesting a few days ago. This was actually during the Cubs-Dodgers series in Los Angeles. He was asked about the difference between the two organizations. Both teams have had great success in recent years, but the organizations are structured very differently. They're managed very differently. And Clayton Kershaw pointed out that the Dodgers would never trade Yu Darvish solely for budgetary reasons. And he's got a great point. If you see this year's team with Yu Darvish and Victor Caratini, one would think this would be a much improved Cubs team, certainly in terms of wins and losses, but you'd also be resolving some weaknesses too. you'd have one more starter eating a bunch of innings and throwing well. That is something that the Cubs definitely need more of in the weeks ahead. You'd also have another backup catcher who is not just a backup catcher, but a solid backup catcher at that. Jose Lobaton, the latest backup catcher to go down with an injury for the Cubs in recent days. Budget-conscious owners would be thrilled to have ticket demand and merchandise sales high for a winning team. The adage, you spend money to make money, would apply, and the Cubs' unwillingness to do that has had profound effects. But certainly that trade involving Yu Darvish and Victor Caratini going out to San Diego, that is not the sole reason for this 42-42 record, but the team certainly would be in a better position. This and that, a look at news and notes from around Major League Baseball. Kyle Schwarber named National League Player of the Month for June. 16 home runs for the month of June. That's the most in the modern era for a leadoff hitter. Schwarber injured over the weekend. I think it was Saturday, I believe he got injured with a what they're calling a significant hamstring injury. He's been put on the 10-day injured list, so I guess that's a positive for Schwarber and Nats fans. At least he's on the 10-day, not the 60-day, but still no possible timetable for his return. Shohei Ohtani named to the American League All-Star squad as both a pitcher and position player. He's leading the majors in home runs with 31. He's only the 10th left-handed hitter with 31 home runs before the All-Star break. How amazing is Shohei Ohtani? Staying with the All-Star game real quick, Boston Red Sox leading the way with 5 All-Star selections. And again, the Cubs with 2 in Bryant and Kimbrel. And I mentioned the Milwaukee Brewers winning all 3 games against the Cubs last week. It's part of a much bigger win streak for that ball club, an 11-game winning streak, and it came to an end yesterday in Pittsburgh. Back to the Cubs. On the injury front, Nico Hoerner is back. He rejoined the Cubs over the weekend, was activated and started in yesterday's contest. Trevor Williams continuing his rehab stint with the Iowa Cubs. Great moment from a couple of days ago. His dad was able to watch him pitch in person in Indianapolis. Trevor pitched in Indy as part of the Pirates organization a few years ago, but his dad was unable to see him firsthand as he was undergoing cancer treatment. Trevor Williams getting closer to rejoining the big league club. Same for Justin Steele. Looks like they're trying to stretch him out prior to activating him, as he had I think 1 or 2 multi-inning efforts over the weekend for the Iowa Cubs. You got to think that the Chicago Cubs would like to slot in Justin Steele in one of these contests where the Cubs starters get pulled pretty early, because they need someone to eat up some innings out of that pen. Cubs and Phillies kicking off a 4-game set tonight at Wrigley Field. Cubs are 42-42, third in the National League Central. Phillies are 39-42, fourth place in the National League East. Just 4.5 games back of the division-leading Mets. Philadelphia splitting their last 10 games, while the Cubs have dropped 9 in a row. Pitching matchup tonight is Matt Moore for the Phillies versus Zach Davies for the Cubs. Moore started the year as a starter. He had 3 consecutive starts. They moved him to the bullpen, and then he picked up a start a week and a half ago. 5 scoreless innings against the Mets, and he hasn't pitched since. Zach Davies for the Cubs, 5-5 so far on the season. All 4 games of this series with the Phillies will start at 8:05 Eastern. All of them on Marquee Sports Network. Thursday's game also on ESPN. Cubs then host St. Louis for 3 games heading into the All-Star break. A lot of tweets and articles talking about the Cubs season. A lot of tweets and articles in recent days talking about the Cubs season essentially being over. I'm not saying that's a bad take. I'm just saying it's an incomplete take, as there is still a little bit of reason to hold out hope. Again, referencing the 2017 ball club, which so many Cubs players were a part of, that are still on that roster today. So we will see with the same players. Can they pull off something amazing, incredible, especially ahead of the All-Star break and the trading deadline? Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, wherever you get yours. Thank you for listening to the Bricks and Bleachers podcast.